Croeso, Bronwen.
Diolch yn fawr.
Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me. So you're a Welsh voice actor, and I think it's maybe fair to say that your bread and butter is audiobook narration.
Yeah.
But you've been doing some video game voice work now for, is this maybe your third year? Is that right?
Just inching in, maybe two. It's been a couple of years now.
2 to 3 years, yeah. And in that time, you've racked up quite an impressive CV, I would say. Well, looking at your roles, there's some major franchises in there that you should be really proud of. You've got World of Warcraft, you've got Diablo, there's Dungeons and Dragons in there. You were a dungeon master, among other roles. Last year, you were Maja in Anotria, The Last Song. And I don't think we can forget your best performance nominated role as Kressa in Baldur's Gate 3. So that's an impressive CV for just 2 to 3 years voice work.
It continues.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure it will. But how does that feel to have just been doing this only a couple of years and to have voiced in some major franchises like that?
Well, it's, I suppose as you can probably tell, I don't quite get it in a way, because I've, I'm not someone who knows a lot about the video game world. I'm an actor. That's what I know. And so, every time that I speak to people about it, I realize just how lucky I've been actually going in. I mean, World of Warcraft was my first job. I mean, it's just smallish couple of parts, but it was I wouldn't say a baptism of fire, but it was exciting. But I think what's most exciting about that is working with the kind of directors that you get to work with on those kind of games. Like Andrea Toyas was my first director. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's just an incredible director in the voice acting world, in video game world, and it's just such a pleasure, really is. And to work with people, because like with audiobooks, obviously mostly I'm just doing it on my own in the studio. Sometimes I go into other studios, but basically it's on my own. So it's been a real delight to.
Well, on that topic then, because like you say, you're usually on your own in a recording booth. Is it the same usually for video games, or do you or have most of your roles had a voice director with you, or I wouldn't think you're normally with other people recording?
Well, I think. So, in fact, I'm trying to think if all of them all of them. I've had a director, not always in another studio, sometimes here from my own home studio. I think a lot of the time, I think people would be surprised at how many quite big games will use remote home studios. You've got to check the quality. But ever since the pandemic, there's been a real move in the whole of the voice acting world into these studios. And I think it's more and more possible. I mean, the bigger games is you tend to go into a studio, but for example, World of Warcraft or Diablo, you're working with American companies. So they're patching into a studio in Soho. So you're still not quite with them, but you are, you do hear from them. And I think with video games, it's so important that you get direction, because you know how you get the script. Often you don't know. You might get the script the day before if you're lucky. You don't always know the name of your character. I haven't always known the name of my character until I get into the booth. So you're just out there and you've got these lines. So you really need some kind of, if nothing else, someone to sort of tell you about the context of the game, or like what the story is, where your character is at that moment, to give you something to play off. You mostly directed, actually.
I do want to come to some of those difficulties and challenges in relation to that, but just for people that maybe don't know Bronwen Price, just give us a little bit of a background on where you're from in Wales. You are a Welsh woman in London now, but where do you come from in Wales, and how did you get into acting? Is that something you always wanted to do?
It is. Well, let me start with the Wales bit. So, born and bred Bangor. You might not be able to tell by my accent. It's funny. I think sometimes people think I lost my Welsh accent when I came away, or I deliberately didn't pick it up. But I've never had a very strong one. Partly, I think, because my mum was from England, so I sort of grew up with her around. But my father's line is Welsh. My grandpa was first language Welsh, would never speak to me in Welsh, though, because I think because of the Welsh not. Do you remember? Do you know the Welsh not?
Yes.
So I think that it was just a sort of a thing that that generation, they didn't want to pass it on. Which is such a shame. Of course, I learnt Welsh at school, so yeah, I do feel very North Walian. So I was there till I was 18, till I left home, went to university. But my parents are still there. I've got friends there, so I still go back several times a year. It's the whole hiraeth being pulled back. I do go and visit. So
I was curious to know how often you were able to visit, but that's good to know.
Yeah, definitely. It's easy to get up there from London, and it is lovely. It's lovely to go back, and you have that. It's just nice to see the mountains, isn't it?
Yes.
You know.
It's the coast as well. It's seeing the sea.
Is it the sea for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think now that I'm away from it, my mum would always say, we'd be driving along the prom and she'd say, we don't know how grateful we are, like, to live here. It's such a beautiful place. And now that I'm away from it, I completely see what she means.
I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? The sea and the mountains that we have up in North Wales. I do think North Wales is sort of, I think people have a sense of it maybe as a holiday destination sometimes, but I don't think they understand quite how Welsh it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm going to get onto something that really annoys me now. I often, when I'm doing audiobooks or whatever, video games or any other voice work, I do quite a lot of telephone messages in Welsh and that kind of thing. But when I'm asked to do a Welsh accent, more often than not, it'll be a South Walian one. I get references like Rob Brydon or whatever, and I'm like, but they're not, that's not the only Welsh accent. I'll do a job and they're like, can you sound more Welsh? And I go full banger and they're like, ooh, no, not that Welsh. Do you know what I mean? I feel there's quite a lot of, I don't know, prejudice against the North. I don't think people understand what it is to be Gog. And actually, I feel like we're fully Welsh, so sort of full of the Welsh language and all that. Anyway, that's a sidebar, Aaron.
No, it's a good topic of discussion. Absolutely, we can talk about that. Speak freely. It's fine.
Thank you. All right, well, yes. And you were asking about acting as well. Yeah, I kind of, I wanted to be a nurse for a bit and a ballet dancer, child of the 80s. But then I was like, no, I want to be an actor from quite a young age. And I just thought, I did. It's a bit not very interesting like that. I just wanted to do it. And then I did it. Just nice.
And so how did you end up moving into audiobook narration? Because that seems to be something that, well, looking at your track record, that there is so many. You've done loads. So that seems to be mostly what you've been doing the past few years. So how did that come about, and what do you love about that?
Good questions. Okay, so first thing, I started off, I did the usual drama school, worked as an actor for quite a while in the theatre, and then I got sick of the up and down kind of lifestyle of it all, and how, one day you had amazing jobs, lots of work, and then you're out of it and that back and forth. So I took a break for a bit, had a family, and then I thought I really need to get back. So I went back initially just to sort of envision, but I found an audiobook company that were looking for volunteers listening books. So I thought, I'll have a go at that. Had a go, just not look back. It's just, I don't know. I think voice acting has become more and more prominent nowadays. I think people are more and more aware of it as an option, especially after the pandemic, and lots of people are interested in it. But it's a real art, I think. It's not just talking, obviously. And the joy, I think, of audiobooks is, doesn't matter what you look like for a start. So the whole envision thing, you're so kind of like pigeonholed and all that. With audiobooks, you play everyone, it's just everything. Old men, aliens, little girl, dogs. I did a book once explaining economics through a sort of like Socratic dialogue with a professor and a dog. So I had to be a dog. And, it's so freeing. And I don't know. And I love literature, and I really enjoy it. And it's all about acting. It really is. It's not just the characters that you play within the book, but the narrator, the narrative voice. Oh, I could go on forever. I won't, but I
suppose the other good thing about it is that you can make any kind of face that you want, and nobody's gonna be able to see or judge it for what you're doing in there.
Yeah, absolutely. You do whatever you like in the booth, quite frankly. You wear whatever you like. You do what you
yeah.
Like, no one's gonna know as long as what comes out sounds
exactly.
Good. Yeah.
And so how did you get into the video game side of things? Did it just an opportunity come up and you took it, and the rest is history, or is it something else? Because like you say, you don't play games, so it's not something I would say you're interested in, but is it just more that the opportunity came up?
It's a really good question. Well, basically, I was sort of pottering along doing audiobooks, doing other voice acting work, like, telephone messages, corporate, all that sort of stuff. And then I went to a talk at BAFTA, I don't know how many, maybe 4 years ago, something like that. And Kate Saxton was talking. She's the director of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
Yeah.
And so there was a talk about that, basically. And she talked about how it was made. They played us bits from it. And I was like, oh my God, this is what video games are. I was brought up on Chucky Egg, that kind of stuff. I got no, you know what I mean? I was really bad at that. So I didn't realize what incredible stories video games tell now. I just had no idea. And that was when I fell in love with the whole kind of concept of it. Like I said, I still don't play them, partially because I'm not very dexterous. I haven't had the years of practice, but I really like watching, like on YouTube, I will watch narrative games. So I was just like, God, I want to do that. That's amazing. That just looks incredible. That looks like a blend of voice acting and direction. And I just thought it was amazing. So that's what started me on it. I was like, I want to do that. Never having thought I would. I was like, no, I want that. So yeah, that's where it started, I suppose. Yeah.
And what have been your favorite roles that you've done so far? And I look at a character like Kressa in Baldur's Gate 3. And she's quite a dark, sinister character, shall we say?
Is she?
Yeah. So do you enjoy playing those kinds of roles? That do you enjoy being the antagonist, or do you prefer to be a hero? But what has been your favorite so far?
I think, I'm going to sound like such an actor about it. I don't mind if they're a protagonist or antagonist, as long as there's a rich life that you can find within them. And often, an antagonist is interesting like that. I think the character, I did enjoy doing Kressa. She was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed her. But the one I like most, perhaps most recently, is Maja, I think, from Anotria, the last song, Goddess. I think because for her, I had a long time to prepare her, unusually. So when I got the audition, there were some really interesting notes around her, and I spent a long time creating the character for the audition, and they really liked it. So I felt that she'd sat with me for a while. And she was interesting. I think she's a funny mix of neither antagonist nor protagonist, as far as I can gather. Just on the edge, quite frankly. But she was really interesting to explore. I really liked her. I enjoyed was it Moireach, Scottish character, but played her in Diablo. She was really fun. Anybody that's got a little bit of kind of like weightiness, maybe darkness as well. Darkness.
And so you mentioned the challenges before of coming into doing video game character roles. And it is true that the bulk of the game has already been created. And so you're coming in late to the whole development process of a game. And so you mentioned that, sometimes you'd get a little script the day before if you're lucky. It amused me when you said you don't know the name of the character until the day. You're like,
always.
It could be a really bizarre name too that you don't even know how to pronounce. And I suppose in video game lore, there's all sorts of weird names and names of locations and all sorts of stuff. So how challenging is that to try and put yourself into being one of these characters and just almost thrown into that role?
I think that's the skill, to be honest with you. That's one of the main skills. I think you've kind of got it there, of being a video game actor. So I think so often people feel like voice acting is easier than acting because it's just your voice, or you just would go and read the stuff. But I think it's a lot harder because you have to use your imagination. You have nothing like an actor would have, like props, set, sound, all that sort of stuff, be it TV, film, or theatre. You have none of that atmosphere. You have to make it all up. And like you said, you have to kind of do it in the moment. So it's it feels like really technically, you have to be really well practiced at that. I think it kind of partly as well, of course, is the director. If you've got a director that can set the scene for you really quickly, know how to help you find that straight away, that makes it a lot easier. And I think also it's kind of like, as actors, going to get all act poncy here, but you spend quite a lot of your time observing other people. You know, you create characters naturally. You enjoy that. You know, you steal things from other people. And I think as a voice actor, particularly in games, what you need to do is to kind of create a kind of someone I know calls it a grimoire of characters. So you're constantly sort of taking, I don't know, stealing people off the street or creating your own or seeing something on TV or kind of just developing ideas of different characters as you go. And so when you get into a booth, when you're like, here's a character, you're like, okay, I've got a feel of a character like this already. I don't kind of consciously go, I'm going to take that one, I'm going to use that one. But you've already got a sort of, you practice nuances, you just can do it a little bit unconsciously. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because every person is unique and complex, just the same as a character is going to be. So, you know, we're all the sum of different parts. And I suppose if you've got all those little ideas and voices in your head, then they're going to be a little bit of each, and you're going to put them together in a particular way to craft that one character. And of course, you've got the voice director there that maybe will hopefully guide you in that process as well.
Hang on, no, put that in the wardrobe.
yeah,
absolutely. But I suppose as well, if you've auditioned and they've taken you on from your audition, then if you've gone that route, then you've already got a sense of one as well, so that can help.
Definitely.
But it's not always the case. So yeah.
And what about motion capture? Because I did see that you posted a picture not long ago on Instagram. Yeah. So is that something you've got a lot of experience in, or not? No,
a lot. I've done it a couple of times. I did it for Baldur's Gate, was all motion capture.
Right.
So I think I always used to think the motion capture was all about doing stunts and, running around. I thought, well, I'm not a stunt person. I can move, but, I was like, oh, I don't know if I would ever do something like that. But when I was casting it, they're like, oh, it's mocap. I'm like, oh, okay. And it was very naturalistic. They just wanted to capture natural movement. I wasn't running around. I wasn't doing anything crazy. So I've got into the suit. I've been in the suit. I've had the lycra balls attached to me and all that sort of stuff. And that was interesting. It's another thing though. It's getting your right hand brain, your left hand, the logical brain. You've got to get that working while you're in that suit, because you've got to remember you can't move out of that space. You've got to always come back to your A pose, all these sort of things while you're being in that character. So it's quite challenging technically, but it is fun. I would definitely do more of it. Definitely.
Yeah, it sounds fun and it looks fun.
Well, it looks fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks fun. I imagine it's probably kind of sweaty and gross in there as well, but
it's not too sweaty.
Not too bad.
Not too sweaty. And I think they clean the suits after each wearer, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
So what's your feeling on Wales's presence in the broader acting world? Because you've got a lot of experience in all types of acting now. And I just wondered what your feeling was on where Wales is at in not just the broader range of acting, but video games. And I was curious to know do you get many offers based on you being Welsh? Do you feel that there's more characters that people are after, Welsh characters or Welsh actors? Because you did touch on the kind of maybe the stereotypicalness of a certain Welsh accent.
Yeah.
And as we know, there's a broad range of Welsh accents, but do you feel like things are improving at all with regards to Wales' presence and how people view Wales?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I could speak for all of how well Wales is represented. In terms of my experience, like from a small child, because I was brought up in North Wales, we had Yspeddwarec, so I watched a lot of Welsh children's TV when I was tiny. Like Super Ted in Welsh and all that kind of Beast About, Will Quack Quack, all of those. But then, so I had a bit of a skewed idea about Wales, I think, when I was little. And as I've got older, I still don't feel there's an awful lot of Wales out there. I think Scotland and Ireland have been romanticized in a lot of ways, which we still haven't quite got to. But then there's been stuff like, Hinterland, which was filmed in both Welsh and English, wasn't it? So that was interesting. And I wonder if it's something to do with the language, because we are so, like, Welsh has been such a strong part of our identity, and perhaps that doesn't translate across so well. I don't know, perhaps that stopped it in a way, but I'm wondering if more so. I mean, we've got some of our classic Welsh Rhys Ifans, haven't we? We've got Iwan Rayon, Game of Thrones. I feel like Welsh people still there. Michael Sheen, fighting a good fight for Wales.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you know what? What I think is interesting, the second part of your question is, it's definitely helped me being Welsh, getting parts for sure.
Yeah.
It's like anything in acting, though. If you've got a kind of niche, that's useful. But I was interested with the whole Kressa Bonedaughter in Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know why she was Welsh. I mean, maybe you know why she was Welsh. I'm not sure. It didn't feel like, usually, I think if you're a Welsh in a game like that, there is a sense of like you're part of a tribe. Or, you know, that demarcates a race of some sort, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In Baldur's Gate, she was just randomly Welsh, which I really liked. I liked that sense that she wasn't like hardcore Welsh. It was quite a light touch. But they wanted me, and they wanted me to be Welsh there. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I feel like that's a good thing. Like, Welsh is infiltrating, and you don't have to say, oh, I'm being really Welsh here. You just are, and that's okay. I don't really know.
It is an interesting one. Well, that is an interesting kind of thought, because on the one hand, you don't want it to be, you know, so obvious. Look, this is a tribe, and they all have Welsh accents, or they all speak Welsh. They're weird, you know. We don't know, you know, like, you don't want it to be like that. I think you'd rather it be that they just so happen to be Welsh. Just who cares? Like, they're just people with a different accent. But I think, you know, I'd love it to just be at a point where, because the fact is, the majority of main roles, they're either American or they're kind of, you know, a certain type of English accent, whether it's, you know, your stereotypical normal RP accent or a Cockney or something like that.
Yeah.
And I suppose it goes for everybody's kind of regional accents in a way. You don't really get a Geordie or a Scouser as you know, and so
Scousers, do you? No.
You don't, do you? And so I think we all kind of, we're trying to fight that kind of stereotype and try and push for that. And it seems like it's really difficult, but I think things have progressed more positively in recent years in regards to Welsh voices and Welsh actors. Certainly with what I do with the Wales and Games website is researching Welsh references in video games. And the surprising thing is just how many there really are. It's more that it's almost like they're scared to say that something is inspired by Wales or the myths of Wales, or that this character maybe is Welsh or something. And we have had this problem that usually they are like the comic relief character, and I think it's getting there in the right way. I did have this discussion with one of your fellow colleagues, Tobias Weatherburn, Welsh actor, and he you know, he made great points too that has been the case in the past, but we do seem to be moving in the right direction. So yeah, I think we're getting there. It's just more about people not being afraid to say when something is inspired by Wales and just kind of pushing that a bit more. So
that's a really good point, I think. And that, I think at the same time, I would love to see like the Mabinogion and all that it'd be gorgeous. And there have been some gorgeous like YA books out for kids more recently. Have you heard of the Blue Book of Nebo, which is like obviously Northwest Wales, set around there. It's, I think it won the Carnegie Medal a couple of years ago. So something like that, but it's sort of based in, it's post-apocalyptic. But it'd be amazing to see video games made out of something like that. Would be quite interesting. I mean, of course, like I love the magic of Wales is just meant for video games, isn't it? And the money and all that, you know, that sort of stuff is totally all very high fantasy. But it would be quite interesting to see if they could bring in other aspects, the more modern Wales, and this sort of, I don't know. Yeah.
I hopefully we get there in terms of what we want, but it's difficult. It feels like it's difficult, but as long as, like you said, people are after Welsh actors, and when they're asking for particular Welsh actors, that it's not always going to be a sort of stereotypical kind of thing. Then as long as that's not always the case, then I think we're moving in the right direction.
And it's about talking about it, isn't it? It's like doing stuff like this. It's like maybe even when I'm in a job and they're like, I want a Welsh accent, I'm like, North Walian, this is North Walian, this is more Welsh, you know. So educating people, maybe.
Absolutely, that is what it is about. It is about educating people for sure. So you mentioned that you don't play video games. But I mean, you've already touched on the kind of things that you would like to see in a game. So, is there something that you would really want to see in video games, maybe in terms of Welsh representation, that would maybe get you interested in, oh, I wouldn't mind trying that, or even just to maybe, because you also did share on Instagram your son playing Enotria, fighting against your character. So that was pretty cool. So do you think there's anything that you'd really want to see that would maybe get you to try a video game?
You make me sound awful, Aaron. And I really, the more I'm getting closer to it, I so am. Partially the reason I don't play it is, like I said before, I just haven't got the skills. So I had to get my son to play it because it's like a Souls-like. So I'm like, there's no way. Like I'll go to developers conferences to go and learn about games and stuff. And it's really interesting. I love learning about the games. But I'll sit down and try and play one of their games. I get stuck on the bridge. Like 20 minutes later, I'm still on the bridge, and the developer has to come over and save me. I'm just rubbish at it, the kind of skill side. But I love the narratives.
Yeah.
So I have, I did download a game, Firewatch. Do you know Firewatch?
Yes, I have played it.
It's really well known, isn't it? I was like, this is it. And it was great. And I started it. I was playing it because you don't have to go in a relatively straight line. I could cope with that and press buttons. But then, of course, I've done it on my iPad, and I'm so old school. I don't have the tech. So like, I need to take over my son's PS5, really, don't I? That's what I need to do. So I'm not anti it. I'm just really slow. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean,
oh, bless you. I mean, there is.
No, there isn't. No, I don't play difficult games either anymore. I used to always be about never putting it on the easy mode. I don't have the patience for it anymore. I really don't, And I can feel like my fingers are not what they used to be, not being able to press. But yeah, I think it's completely normal. So I enjoy I don't mind if a game's graphics don't look the most amazing in the world. I'm happy to just play a game with a good story.
Is it story for you as well then? That's
mostly. Yeah, I think it still has to be relatively fun, or it's going to be a struggle getting through it. But yeah, I do enjoy those kind of, well, they brand them as walking simulators, games like Firewatch, because it's not much gameplay to them. You're more like walking through the storyline. But there's nothing wrong with that, because the thing with games is that they're so broad with the types of games that you can play, that there's something for almost everybody out there. Firewatch is a great one. You could, wouldn't it be cool to have something like that in Wales, walking through the Welsh mountains and
be amazing. We could, oh god, as giants or something. Oh yeah, because that's the thing about video games, isn't it? Again, I'm sounding so naive, and I'm sorry everybody, but that I'm beginning to understand just the joy of it, of how immersive they are. And I know it's immersive, but actually when you get into it and do it, you're like, wow, you get to shape the story. And do it in Snowdonia. It'd be incredible.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah,
we should do it, Aaron. We should do it.
Yeah, well,
tell anyone.
Actually, I wanted to ask, because you do a lot of audiobooks as well. So is it every day that you're doing a recording, or so how do you keep your voice in the best condition for something like that? If you're going to be doing a lot of speaking, do you try and not talk throughout the whole day, or is the best way to kind of keep your voice active?
Yeah, so I think it's different. Different styles of VO require different kind of things. So audiobooks, you don't shout and scream with audiobooks. It's you might have moments of physical tension, but it's a different feeling. So it's, as everyone always says about audiobooks, it's a marathon as well. I mean, my voice might get tired by the end of the day, but it's fine. You get used to it. It's like a muscle, I suppose. And you just drink lots of water, obviously. You have things like, I've got this here, a sort of steam inhaler type thing as well, which really helps sort of, sorry to get technical, but hydrates your vocal cords directly. So that's useful. But if you're doing something like a video game session, so for example, say the World of Warcraft one I did, I was playing a couple of creatures, and I did, what was it, Centaur I was playing, and I had to do quite a bit of battle cries for that. So you do that all at the end of it, but that was quite wearing. So I wouldn't be doing that every day. And also with that, you offer, if you're lucky, you get a director especially that comes on to help you with those. So with that one, I had someone come on and sort of basically do the sound they wanted me to make, and then I would do a number of sounds until they got it, and then they'd stop. And they're very, very careful with your voice now. So I think, after voice actors kind of blowing out their voices in the past, they know now they're careful. So with that, I wouldn't speak afterwards. And you use straw work, to kind of help you to cool down. There's stuff, but I don't do that every day. I do audiobooks, so it's okay. Thanks for asking.
No, I was curious just because I was thinking, that thing you showed there, I've never seen anything like that, but
I like it, this thing.
Yeah.
Vocal mist thing. You press a button. All right, so you press a button if it's working. It's not working. Come on. Oh, this is embarrassing. I'm pressing a button and its batteries run out. It should. Or maybe I've used that. Anyway, steam comes out of here and you inhale it, and it's very good for you.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
That's that. Yeah.
I was curious, if you had sort of advice for. Actually, I'll come to that in a moment. What I wanted to ask, because it'll probably lead into that, is your thoughts on AI right now, because I think it's fair to say we're entering a bit of a troubling time, or we're already in a troubling time with regards to it for creative people, whether it is artists that paint or draw, or actors like yourself, whether it's film actors, voice actors, songwriters, lyricists. This is affecting so many people right now. And the Screen Actors Guild currently still on strike, and they're trying to sort something with these major corporations that almost refuse to sign something that's going to benefit actors like yourself, because they want to use people's voices without using the actor themselves, effectively generating their own voices without needing a voice actor. And it's essentially it's theft, and we're probably on the same page with this. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So I thought hopefully you can better explain kind of what's going on and maybe why this is so important, because I think the average person maybe doesn't realize or understand just how serious this is for people in the industry like you.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. And I mean, it's been something that's been a concern for the voice acting world in general for some time now, definitely. And I know other areas within the voice world, I think, are already seeing an impact. So IVR, so phone messages, corporate stuff, e-learning, there's a concern around that even more. But I think the sense was to begin with that people doing things like video games and audiobooks would be safer because it's more acting, it's more sort of human. But they've been coming for those as well, as you know. And it is hugely problematic because, I mean, from my perspective, and from what you said, it is theft. It's not, AI is not creating any of this stuff. It's derivative. It's taking what's there. It's stealing people's voices. I have friends that have experienced that and have had to sue companies, etc. It's kind of the Wild West still out there, and we desperately need legislation around it. And the moment, it's quite worrying within the UK, I think, because I'm not very up on all this, but I think the EU have kind of protections in place, but because we're not in the EU anymore, we're a little bit more at risk. And, at the end of the day, it feels like those times when technology occurs and we have a choice whether to legislate for it or to let it just run wild. And it will have an impact, a huge impact, if we don't legislate. And it's just not morally right, is it? Because they're stealing people's voices, people's work, and it's not just your voice, is it? That if they're taking the stuff from the internet, your work that you have worked on, and it's kind of your humanity, isn't it? It's, that's what informs the voice. To be a voice actor, you don't need a nice voice. You need to be good at acting. You need to be able to connect with the world and to tell stories. And that's what it feels like it's stealing. Personally, from my perspective, I still can't, and I may take this back, I still can't quite see how it could be done sort of perfectly, because always I think machines can't understand subtext. I can't see how they can. Maybe I'm being naive here. And I think you'll always need a person somewhere to shape that performance. If it's not the voice actor, then I imagine they'll be getting other people in to do that, to shape and shade the performance. I mean, I think there have been some famous kind of examples of where someone's done it in the video game and had someone crying, and it's very, very believable. But they will have spent hours shaping that, You can't just shove it in a machine and say, I want them to cry a bit and do this and that, and then out it comes perfect. So I wonder, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I hope that if this continues and they continue down this route, it will ultimately be cheaper to get a voice actor in to do it at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Than have someone getting people in and making it. I don't know. I'm not up with this particularly, I'm afraid. But I do, it is immoral and it needs to be legislated against. But I hope ultimately it'll go away.
Yeah. I mean, I did read that, there's been about 150 games that have already signed like an interim, contract agreement that they won't use AI. And that's great.
Yeah.
But then it's the major multi-billion-dollar corporations that are kind of refusing and saying, what I did read today was, okay, we'll sign it, but only from going this point forward. And we're still allowed to use your voices from everything before. And it's like, well, no, that if all these games can sign it and they're okay with it, you can as well. But it's the fact that, if this was reversed and people were taking things from these corporations, they'd be dragging them through the courts and suing them.
Of course they would.
So why is it any different?
Yeah.
It's just, like you said, it's the moral of it all. It doesn't take a lot to realize this is wrong. And it just feels, I want to believe something will be sorted as well. I want to be like you and be optimistic about it. But I think it is just so important that people understand how serious it is, because I think the average person doesn't think about it, or they don't care about it if it's not affecting them in any way. It is important to talk about it and try and get the message out there. Sure. Have you ran into any kind of problems so far with in terms of getting work, or a company that maybe don't agree with? Obviously, don't have to say any, anything like. But has it been okay so far for you? Or
personally, I've been fine. Yeah, I've been fine. So maybe that's why I don't have quite that sort of sense of real deep anger. I mean, I have a friend though. Like I said, I've had a friend who's had her voice has been ripped off. Wow. So but she's got it sorted, thankfully. So for me, I haven't felt it yet. And again, I like to think that within the audiobook world and the video game world, even though obviously we've got these big companies who are not playing ball, that it's not quite so easy to replace us. I hope.
Yeah.
So I haven't experienced it, but when I do, I'm sure I'll have very different sort of I will be a lot angry, I imagine.
If you got something in place that going forward that you allow make sure the company agrees to your terms in regards to all this kind of thing.
Well, I always have with the audiobook world, we have a kind of there's an AI rider that I always attach. There's a company called Nava in America who've created this sort of, I mean, it's not foolproof, but I always, whenever anything comes up, I'm always clear about, I do not consent for this to be used for machine learning in any way. So I'm really clear about that. But because again, the whole, they're allowed to scrape stuff off the internet now, aren't they? That, I don't know.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. You know what, Aaron? I think I went through the worry of it a couple of years ago with friends of mine, and then I'm just like, it hasn't happened to me yet.
Yeah,
I'm going to fret too hard. But I sign petitions. I write to the MP. I do that sort of stuff around it. So
cool. Because that's what I was going to lead into. Sort of advice for maybe future voice actors or people that are trying to, they're starting out. Maybe they're trying to get into voice acting in games or something along those lines. Then all this AI stuff is coming out, and maybe it's hit them like, well, what's the point? So I was just wondering if you sort of had any maybe optimistic advice for people that are kind of want to enter into this world and be the next Bronwen Price.
Aim a little higher than that, Aaron. But
what sort of maybe sort of advice you could give to people like that?
I do. I have advice that many people wheel out, actually, I think it's very good advice. And do you know what? I think this is good advice, whether AI were on the horizon or not. Be as good an actor as you can be. Get the training, make sure that you can act. Because I think there is a little bit, again, a bit of a misconception about voice acting in that it's not as hard as acting because you don't have to do the body, which is not true. You do the body, and it's harder because you've got to use your imagination. But aside from that, is so much about acting. You've got to do the work on characters. You've got to find, you've got to do all that kind of stuff. So I would say, if you're thinking about doing it and excited about it, come do it. God, yeah. But train. Know that you have to work on your acting skills, and then you need to work on how you use them within a voice acting capacity as well. Because I was very sort of like, I was a bit arrogant to start with, to be honest with you, Aaron. I'll say this was my first audio, but yeah, fine. I'm a trained actor, been to drama school, I can do this. It's not that easy, and it does take sort of certain techniques and skills. But yeah, I still think there'll be a place. I do, and I think it's worth it. So go act, go join your local acting troupe. Improvisation is a really good thing to learn to do as well, because with voice acting, you're not always expected to ad lib, but they like a bit of that, and it's that quick thinking that you need. So yeah. And then, if you, again, I think if you're a good actor, if you're fully human, then it's harder for the machines to take your job. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think that's good advice.
You like it? All right.
I do, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you'll help quite a few people out with that for sure. And I sort of wanted to end on a cheerier topic as well. I know we kind of already touched on maybe the sort of, the things that you'd like to see in terms of Wales in video games and media in general. But is there sort of anything else you can think of that you'd like, sort of a Welsh character that you've always dreamt of maybe playing as, or something you'd like to see, even if it a Welsh mythology or Welsh famous figure that you would love to see? Do you think they could work in a video game, or somebody that you'd really like to play as?
Yeah, well, let me think. Do you know, going back to the Mabinogion, I mean, God, at school, I don't know, you probably experienced this as well. I used to have to draw a lot of Mabinogion cartoon. I was like, oh, Mabinogion. But when I got older, I'm like, I love the Mabinogion. It's just such a wonderful sort of source. And what's the story? Is it the character's Blodeuwedd, the woman made of flowers?
Yeah.
I think she would be fabulous to play. She's such a one as well, isn't she? I mean, not only that being made out of flowers would be amazing, but then her story is, she's a bit of an antagonist, one might say, as well, isn't she? So I'd like to do her.
Because I was thinking of maybe somebody like the sorceress Qariin Dotur.
Oh, yeah.
She transforms into various animals to chase her son Gwen, and you could absolutely apply that to a kind of video game format, or maybe she could give the main character these kind of powers to transform into different animals. And,
oh God, yeah. Has no one made a video game of the Mabinogion yet, Aaron? Surely they must have done.
There is somebody working on a game called Tales from the Mabinogion. I think it'll either come out this year or next year, but
cool.
It's a shame to think that it's taken this long to kind of get these kinds of games. But like I say, at least they're coming. Exactly.
Coming.
Yes. Yeah, we're getting there slowly. I think that's everything. So I really appreciate your time, Bronwen. It's really insightful. And if you're on social media, then please, let people know, and I can pop it up onto the screen.
Yes, I am. So Bronwen Price on Insta, not on X so much anymore, but mainly on Instagram. If anyone wants to check what I'm doing, that's where I am. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Diolch yn fawr. Good luck with all your future roles. I'm sure you're working on more video games. Maybe you can't talk about them. Or is there anything you could talk about?
No.
Nope. That's good. But as long as you're working on some games, that's a good time.
I know. It's all good. It's all good, Aaron. It's all good.
Bronwen, thank you so much. Diolch yn fawr. Take care.
You too.